Welcome to the Asian edition of Around the Globe. I'm Naveen Ramzi here with all the latest from the world's largest continent. Our topic today will be floods in Pakistan and the Prime Minister's cancellation of his visit to the UN General Assembly. But we'll first have a quick review of news stories making headlines this week. A roadside bomb has killed 9 civilians, including 5 children in Afghanistan's northern Faryab province. Faryab is often considered to be among the country's more stable regions. The improvised explosive device detonated in the province's Kormach district and wounded 1 other person. Afghanistan has seen a recent spike in civilian-related deaths, mainly due to the use of landmine-like pressure plate improvised explosive devices by anti-government elements.
Stand by.
The Pakistani Taliban declared they would target the weddings and funerals of anyone involved in the pro-government activity against them. The threat came as the Taliban claimed responsibility for Thursday's suicide blast targeting a funeral procession for a member of an anti-Taliban militia. Thursday's attack happened when a suicide bomber blew himself up standing in a funeral procession in the northwestern Pakistani province of Khyber.
Nous avons vu toute cette destruction, ces voitures, ce cratère, cette dévastation.
3 bomb blasts struck the southern Thai border in the city of Sangay, leaving at least 4 people dead and 18 wounded. Authorities believe the bombs were planted in a car and motorcycle and detonated with some form of coordination. They said drug gangs retaliating after a crackdown by authorities last week carried out the incident. Sangay is a popular tourist destination for Thais and Malaysians. China's Premier Wen Jiabao says China must change its system of absolute power and introduce more democracy. He made the comments at the World Economic Forum meeting of business leaders in the Chinese city of Dalian. Wen, who is due to retire in just over a year, has spoken several times in recent months about the need for reform.
精神加强和英国组装的崭新模式，有效利用了中国的资金、劳动力和市场。
Democracy champion Aung San Suu Kyi says there are finally signs of political change in Myanmar, but its long-suffering people are still far from real freedom. In an exclusive interview, the Nobel Peace Prize winner said that the new government appears genuine in its desire for democratic reform. After almost half a century of iron-fisted military rule, the junta in March handed power to a new government led by President Thein Sein, one of a clutch of former generals who shed their uniforms to contest last year's election. And now we move on to this report. Japanese pop group SMAP staged their first overseas concert in Beijing, performing various numbers that included Chinese language versions of some of their hit songs in front of an audience of about 40,000. Let's go and see more in this report.
Japanese pop band SMAP are in China for a long-awaited concert, seen as a rare chance to ease strained ties. They had been due to visit Shanghai last year, but their tour was cancelled after a territorial row flared. A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman said he hoped the concert, SMAP's first overseas performance, would boost bilateral friendship. It is the first visit to China by a top Japanese band for almost a decade. SMAP, a boy band that launched its debut single just over 20 years ago, is one of Japan's best-known groups. Its members, who are now in their late 30s, host a weekly cookery and music show. They have also appeared in numerous television dramas, building fan bases in both South Korea and China. Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao issued an invitation to the band in May after previous plans were shelved. Concerts scheduled to take place in Shanghai in September 2010 were cancelled by the Chinese organizers after Japanese Coast Guards arrested the Chinese trawler captain following a collision of the islands that both countries claim. SMAP had also been due to perform at the Shanghai Expo earlier that year, but the concert was cancelled because of fears of overcrowding. But this time the group have made it to China, and on Thursday they were welcomed by a senior politician. Ties between China and Japan remain strained by territorial rows and unresolved historical issues. The dispute last year over the uninhabited Senkaku Island led to small anti-Japanese demonstrations in several Chinese cities.
Welcome back, and still with Around the Globe. Joining us today is Mr. Mohamed Elalfy, economic expert. Thank you, sir, for joining us here on International. Sir, how are the Pakistani authorities dealing with the flood disaster this year as compared to last year?
Unfortunately, the floods last year destroyed more than 2 million houses destroyed, and if we will compare just figures, and today, this year, 2011, destroyed 1,300,000 houses destroyed, and destroyed also 6 million acres, including 2 million acres planted by crops, and also more than half at this time, this year, and unfortunately also the Pakistani government is they know well that the floods is coming this year, and they have experts, and they are expecting this to happen, but they are not ready to face this natural crisis. Only they can cover 30% from the requested funds to face this crisis.
Sir, just allow me to go to this report on the Pakistani Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Jailani's cancellation of his visit to the UN General Assembly this year. The Pakistani Disaster Authority said Friday that the death toll now total 248 since August 10 as a result of flooding, including 52 children and 57 women. Let's go and see more in this report, and we'll be right back.
Pakistani Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Jailani has cancelled a trip to next week's UN General Assembly in New York because of floods in Sindh province. His office said he was staying in the country to direct relief efforts. 6 million people have been affected so far, with fears some areas will remain submerged for months. 8 agencies are again warning of a disaster and have launched emergency appeals. At least 269 people are already confirmed to have died. Thousands of refugees are streaming to Karachi, Hyderabad and other urban areas unaffected by the floods. More than 2 million people are suffering from flood-related diseases following the torrential rain, aid officials say. Cases of malaria, diarrhea are increasing. Many others have little or no food or shelter. The authorities are accused of being months behind schedule in repairing dams and embankments damaged by last year's floods. Last year, Pakistan's leaders were lambasted for a slow and inefficient response to a massive flood disaster. This year, the floods are caused by the heaviest rains for a century and are focused in Sindh province, where the situation is worse than last year. Critics say that many key lessons simply haven't been learned from last year. Work to repair damaged embankments and flood defenses isn't finished, and disaster preparations, including stocks of plastic sheeting for shelter and emergency aid, weren't properly made. The Prime Minister's office said he would not go to New York to supervise relief efforts in Sindh. Foreign Minister Hinda Rabbani Kar will address the General Assembly in his place.
Welcome back. Sir, as per the report, more than 200 million people are affected by flood-related diseases. What kind of diseases affect people in such crisis?
In such crises like floods like this, malaria is a well-known disease in this crisis, and of course they are homeless, foodless, and unfortunately the Pakistani government can't reach these places to provide services to the people need support. Only the Pakistani army can support those people, and we trust that strong Pakistani army can support the people as like last year exactly. The efforts of the Pakistani army was a huge effort to save the lives of millions of people, but they need for the Pakistan announced they need $357 US as emergency relief, and of course this not a big amount to be saved from the UN and the neighbor countries to Pakistan, but until now, until this moment, the neighbor countries didn't support the Pakistan in this crisis. Of course, we know it's very near to China. Neighbor countries, China, Malaysia, Japan, Russia, also they can support and they can save all the requested funds and support for the Pakistani government to save more lives, but they are punishing Pakistan because of the huge cooperation with the United States in what's so-called war against terrorism. That's you can say that's a political action against Pakistan from many neighbor countries.
What information is available so far concerning losses and damage to crops and livestock?
Until now, 344 people dead and 633 injured, and more than 7 million displaced in this natural crisis, and 1,300,000 homes destroyed, and 600 acres, of course, destroyed by floods. And of course, there is still many thousands of people still stranded on the rooftops, need support to be out of this crisis.
Some critics are blaming the Pakistani government for not getting ready for the floods. How far is that true?
Yes, of course, they know that the floods is coming, and they are facing a big damage in 2010. And of course, they know well the floods will come to for example, in this area and on that area, and of course they can build dams. They can build the dams to save people and save millions of acres and planted acres by crops, but nothing done on the ground. This government is not protecting the Pakistani people.